What's up, yo? We're gonna tap in. Let's go.
Took me 30 years to figure out. I can explain what physicists in 100 years have not understood. Nobody can
CPU
understand
inventor.
why.
Are you sure this guy's the inventor of the computer? Bro, maybe one of the many inventors. That's what I would think. But let's see.
Quantum computers work because their actual operation cannot occur in space-time. There is a deeper reality where the feelings and the fields exist, the meaning of information exists, and from that world you have this world that is a classical world where you can get classical information, and we think that the only world that exists is this world. But this world we have constructed with our bodies.
What you're about to hear might completely rewire how you see yourself, your body, your mind, even your place in the universe.
So I think this gentleman is trying to introduce the idea of a parallel reality. Or maybe that there's even multiple, more than just our physical world, and then this world that has the information, words, the meaning of the words. He thinks that's all contained in a particular field of energy. I mean, that's what I'm getting from what he just said. But let's see.
Federico Fajan isn't just any scientist. He's
Bro,
the man who invented
what a name. Did you see that last name?
the microprocessor. See, in every computer, each switch, a bit, is either on or off. That's it, 0 or 1. But your body? Every single one of your 50 trillion cells contains the entire blueprint of who you are.
It gets better because the matrix or computerized things, anything you see on the screen, is made up of zeros and ones. We look around us, we see over 8, 9 billion people on Earth easily, right? Um, what does all that life come from? Zeros and ones. You might be thinking, what the heck are you talking about, Josh? Zeros, female, and ones, phallic. You get what I'm saying? Ones, like the, and zeros, like the, so you get it? Like, it's life. They just happen to choose 0 and 1 when they started designing the computers, and it just happens to play on our sexual preference, not preferences. That's weird. Sexual parts, okay, and mimic them.
Cell is a miniature reflection.
It makes me think of the spirituality underneath it too, like people wanting to play God, knowing that God made man, or so it says. Yeah, right. I believe, but
Of the whole. That's not mechanical, that's holographic.
We as human beings, we are fields which are part whole of one, the totality of what exists. Same pattern repeated at different scales.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. He says each of these cells doesn't just hold information, it's connected to the whole body through something deeper, quantum fields. This means your body isn't just a system of parts working in isolation, it's a field of intelligence, a constantly adapting self-aware network. And this isn't speculation. This is backed by the foundations of quantum physics. Now let's unpack that. In classical physics, we treat matter like isolated, measurable stuff. But quantum physics shattered that idea. Particles aren't objects. They're states of a
bro, I've heard that 99% of it's all empty space, anyways. When you measure the atom, the proton, the neutron, the electron, things like that, you look at the innards of them, empty space, just nothing. The only thing that it is the shell of that. So if it's like, if you zoom in and you see it and it's this big, every part that's my finger, like my thumb, these curved fingers, that's all the solid part of it. But then inside, what do you see? Nothing, because it's empty. They've discovered that's what we're made of. So that we are made up of physical matter, but that physical matter in its own right is empty space mostly. How mind-boggling, you know?
field. You can't separate the wave from the ocean. Likewise, you can't separate a cell from the field it emerges from. So when we ask, what are we really? We're not bags of chemicals reacting predictably. We are dynamic, indeterminate systems woven into fields that respond to intention, attention, and maybe even consciousness. And if that's true,
I think it's very difficult to even begin to scratch the surface at who we really are, who we're fully made up of. Sure, there's the physical, which we've addressed, and then we're the soul. That's who we really are, right? The eternal soul, that divine spark within. Then there's the spirit. The spirit is something that weighs heavy on you, either, or it could be light as a feather. It could be the Holy Spirit, but a lot of other spirits tend to weigh heavy on you and impact your mood, your thought processes, your emotion, your heart center, everything, you know? And so it's very interesting to see the dichotomy or even parallels that can be drawn between the two, but also differentiations. Um, it makes it knowing that there's both on both sides and there's not some happy medium lets us know that there's more to be found, that whatever we've already discovered, that's great and all, but there's more layers to it, so we got to keep going. We must remain steadfast in our discoveries or our attempts to discover.
then the way we've modeled consciousness, like it's a side effect of the brain chemistry, isn't just incomplete, it's fundamentally flawed. Stay with me because what comes next dives even deeper. You're about to see why classical science has been missing the most important part of the picture. For over a century, science has operated under a simple rule. If you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. That's how we ended up reducing life to chemical reactions and neurons firing in the brain. Because
I don't like that. If we can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Bro, that just sounds so ignorant in my humble opinion. Have you ever felt something shift in your spirit or in the spirit, like the spiritual realm, like the unseen? Have you ever felt somebody staring at you when they're 10 to 20 feet away from you, behind you, and you turn around and sure enough, they're looking at you, or they go "Ooh," and look away? You can sense that stuff. That can't be measured, but it can be felt. So it's pretty freaking real if you've ever felt it. So what do you do about that? You just throw it out, throwing out the baby with the bathwater? Bro, get the fuck out of here with that.
that's what we could observe, record, and replicate. But here's a problem. That method, powerful as it is, can only describe half the picture. The visible half, the measurable half. What it
Thank
misses
you.
are
Thank you. If you take that same rule that I just made fun of and you apply it to physical matter, okay, I'll honor that. Okay, but anything spiritual, anything metaphysical, anything on the unseen realm, anything beyond the visibility of our particular light spectrum, yeah, because imagine the spectrum is this big. We can see about that out of all this. So, and it's right around a third of the way in, or two-thirds of the way in, or half, somewhere between like 30 and 70%, like on that line, I think. And anything before it is lower than what we can see. Anything to the right of it is anything higher than what we can see. And this goes, I'm pretty sure it goes all the way from infrared, which makes me think of red, like the base chakra, all the way up to ultraviolet. So they're adding words to red and violet, which is the lower and highest chakras, which are how we balance, how we measure our energetic systems and what we've come up to the conclusions of. So you take infrared, which is the lowest of the reds, and ultraviolet, which is the highest of the violets. They're both actually a little lower than the chakras, and are higher. You know, the red's a little bit lower than the root, and the ultraviolet's a little bit higher than the violet, than the crown. This is how I saw it described in a diagram last week. So
the invisible connections, the quantum fields that hold everything together. And ironically, quantum physics has been telling us this for decades. Particles, which we once believed to be tiny building blocks of matter, turned out to be not particles at all. They're not little marbles bouncing around, they're states of a field, temporary ripples
what?
in something much deeper. They come and go, they aren't permanent, and they aren't separate. This changes everything, especially when it comes to understanding
Bro, did he just say that the cells that make up our, maybe I heard it wrong.
life, because your body, every cell in it, is made of these quantum states, and these states aren't
I didn't hear it wrong. That's what I thought. This is crazy.
isolated, they're entangled, which means the idea of you being a self-contained machine, it was never
This is
true.
false.
Particles are not objects. Particles are states of a field. They cannot be taken away from the fields. They're not separable from the fields.
So why
So it's
has
just
modern
here.
science clung so tightly to the machine model?
So, for instance, like my spirit is contained, or my soul is contained within my body, right? But this is just a result of that deeper inner state, and it can't be separated unless, like, I cut my finger off or bite it off and spit it out. But other than that, it's going to stay part of my body, right? Because it's part of that field. I think that's what he's trying to say. That I'm still a little confused as to because if that was 100% true, that would immediately negate many things that we've previously conceived and believed. What's going on here?
Because it's predictable, it's controllable, and it gives the illusion of certainty. In a classical world, things follow rules. They can be mapped, built, and manipulated. And that's attractive, not just to scientists, but to industries built around control. But in a quantum classical world, things behave differently. They adapt, they self-organize, they evolve in ways that can't always be predicted. That's a lot harder to monetize and much harder to dominate. And here's where it gets even deeper.
This made me think of the sacred secretion, bro, because everything had to be lined up perfectly in order for the cup to runneth over and for me to have my awakening. If any of those pieces that were lined up perfectly were off, it probably would have destroyed the seed. I wouldn't be able to raise it. I might not even be able to push the oil down, let alone rise it back up. And I know this because I'm doing all the things they suggest, and all of a sudden now I can't do it. But when I wasn't even doing any of the things they suggested, like they say alkaline diet and hold your seed, I was probably watching corn like twice a week or something. So not much, but still pretty consistent, like regularly enough to be considered regular. So that should have taken me out of the running to tap into the sacred secretion, right? Not only that, but I wasn't eating fully alkaline. They say you should be eating alkaline and eat, and in fact, those 3 days where the moon is in your sun sign, you should be fasting. I wasn't doing any of that. I was eating clean. I was eating fruits and nuts and stuff like that, so that's alkaline. But I was also eating meat, not a whole lot of it, but like a good portion each dinner, every day for dinner. But I still tapped in, so it proves that it doesn't take you out of the running, nor does it mean that you're automatically going to be able to do it. Um, I don't know, it's just crazy. I'll talk more on that in another video.
If the classical model strips away meaning, treating consciousness like a byproduct of brain chemistry, then the quantum model does the opposite. It puts consciousness at the foundation, not an accident, not an output, but the starting point of reality itself. And if
And if, bro, bro,
And if that's
thank you.
true, then everything from artificial intelligence to neuroscience has been built on a dangerously incomplete understanding of what it means to be alive. If you've ever wondered why consciousness still remains one of the greatest mysteries in science, it comes down to this. We've been trying to explain it using tools that simply aren't built for the job. In the classical world, the world of
That's pretty true. Whatever you're taking of this spirituality, you're trying to take it and input it into a system that was never built or designed to successfully take it in and analyze it accurately. It just wasn't. Because these other systems are built for physicality, they're built for other things, not necessarily for the intangible.
computers and equations, information is static. You can copy it, move it, and process it through algorithms. That's what your phone does every second of the day. A bit is either 0 or 1, and those values can be duplicated perfectly. But quantum information plays by completely different rules. You can't copy it. You can't even fully observe it without disturbing it. The moment you try to measure a quantum bit, what's called a qubit, you collapse it. The infinite possibilities it holds shrink down to just 1, 0, or
Now, do you think that's because I've heard another thing where they say there's this process that goes on when a molecule is being watched by a human, maybe even an animal, but it's being watched by a living thing, like that particle changes. So what that could mean is that when we're not looking, when nobody's looking at it, it actually might be in a different state than the state that we perceive it as. That's quite mind-boggling as well.
1 based on probability. And once that collapse happens, the original state is lost.
The maximum information that you can get from a quantum bit is a classical bit. The quantum bit cannot be known. The not cloning theorem says that you cannot clone even a quantum bit. Quantum information cannot be reproduced. Classical information can be reproduced.
This
Yeah, and it can be. They found out even certain information can be stored in genomes or in DNA rather. Um, what's up with that? That's pretty crazy. Makes you think if like those crazy rabbit holes where people say, "Oh, aliens hijacked humans," which we used to be just before Homo sapiens or whatever, when we were the caveman type stuff, and they mess with our DNA and they changed us and all this stuff. And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds crazy. Where did you even get that idea from?" Maybe it stems from some of this stuff.
means quantum information is private. It cannot be separated from the system that holds it. And here's the mind-bending part. This kind of information behaves more like experience than data. What you feel right now, your inner world, can't be downloaded, cloned, or transferred. It's real. It exists, but only within you. And that leads to a radical idea. Maybe consciousness isn't produced by the brain. Maybe the brain is a translator, a filter for a deeper quantum.
It is. You're spot on. Also, the pineal gland, this very little thing in our brain, so small, that serves as a transceiver, as an inductor. No, 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 no. What's a better word? It serves as a beacon for the energy to go to. Think of when we used to have cable and we put the satellite on our roof. There you go, satellite. It's like that. It's like it's picking up, the frequencies that are coming through the atmosphere. Um, when your pineal gland is completely calcified and blocked, you wouldn't notice these waves if they hit you right in the face. You wouldn't even notice. You're living in a fallen, fleshly, carnal state. But when you decalcify the pineal gland halfway or more or fully, then you're definitely able to start picking up on the subtle changes in atmospheric, not pressure, but feelings, like what you maybe if you felt some weird stuff. Like I've had my room drop like 10 to 15 degrees like that before, and I knew that there was a bad presence around me. I don't know if it was, I don't even want to say it. I'm going to sound schizo. I thought it was Satan himself because I was having what they call the dark night of the soul. And then I felt like people were like soul transferring and whatever. I'm not even going to go there. That shit will get me put in a padded room.
Field that already contains awareness. So when we try to explain consciousness using algorithms, we hit a wall because algorithms can't produce meaning. They can only simulate structure. A machine might generate a sentence, but it doesn't feel the meaning of that sentence.
Even if AI gives you a good idea, AI doesn't know that it is a good idea. You recognize the good idea of AI with your understanding, with your comprehension.
In this view, consciousness and free will aren't emergent, they're foundational. And everything else, from biology to technology, emerges from them. This flips the scientific model upside down, because if what we feel can't be measured, copied, or simulated, then it may be quantum information tied to a field that science
Because it's so real and genuine that you can't fake the funk. This thing it is what it is. Even like they said, the second you look at something, it could potentially change its shape, how it looks, how it appears to you, what it makes you feel. So are we really looking at that same thing? Because when we're not, it could be in a completely different state. Meaning that some parts that we think make up life but aren't life itself just might be.
still barely understands.
Let's chat about the first big AI agent trend for
All right,
2026.
I'm slumping down.
Agents for every.
Then it may be quantum
I'm slumping
information
down.
tied to a field that science still barely understands. There's a moment in quantum physics that no one can fully explain, a moment where potential becomes actual. It's called the collapse of the wave function, and it's one of the most mysterious transitions in all of science.
The collapse of the wave function is just a way of saying that we don't know.
At the quantum level, particles don't exist in one place. They exist in multiple states at once until we observe them. Then suddenly everything changes. The field collapses.
That's what I was just talking about, bro. I'm so happy they segued into this.
And a single outcome appears. But here's the catch. Physics can't explain how that collapse happens. There's no formula, no mechanism. It's not a gradual process. It's instantaneous, unpredictable, and completely outside the...
In a very abstract way, this also proves to me that magic exists. Now, what you define as magic is what's going to let you either think I'm an idiot for saying that or spot on. Um, but yeah, power, focus, and effect. In this TV show I used to watch called The Librarians, they would talk about magic is just power, focus, and effect. So it has three components, three main components to it. It could have more, but those are the ones that you're going to notice. And if you could confirm them, then you know it's magic. There's magic going on. The power, so it could be a talisman, and maybe the power is what the talisman will do if blank. The focus is what you need people to focus on, or you need them to do for it to become effective. And then speaking of segueing into effect, what is the outcome? Okay. Um, so the power is how it's going to, but the focus and effect. So all of them, and they all tie in. And see how I even struggled a little to differentiate number one and number three? That's because they are tied together quite closely.
Sounds of classical cause and effect. And this is where it gets really strange. What if that collapse doesn't happen to us, but through us? What if observation itself, the act of conscious awareness, is what finalizes reality? Think about it.
I actually really like what he just said there. Oh my God. Yeah, because it's our consciousness that makes everything in the state that it is. It's our awareness. I think this is what the people of deeper mystery schools and secret societies are getting at, you know?
Particle only chooses a state when it's observed. But what does observed mean? A camera, a sensor, or something with the capacity to experience?
Yeah, I don't think holding a camera at something will change it. Then again, I'm not even going to get it. No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. So they had this thing where they would get a camera and they said, look, and it shows. Apparently, I don't know. It could be an editing trick, like a cheap editing trick. But they're like, look, it shows Pikachu with no black tail, and then when they record it with a certain camera from back in the day, it shows Pikachu with a black tail. And they're saying that's where it actually came from. They're saying that the I forget what it's called, you guys. Um, the Mandela effect. They're saying maybe it's not like the Mandela effect. Maybe it's just that we had different things through the lenses. So some videos that were being recorded did end up showing Pikachu with the black tail, and others didn't. So is this where it stems from? And it was just very interesting to think of that.
This idea that consciousness plays a role in shaping reality isn't just philosophical speculation, it's built into the math of quantum mechanics, and it suggests something profound. That you're not just witnessing the world, you're participating in its creation.
Quantum information is the
We're so much more powerful than we've been led to believe. I think this is the ultimate secret that they're gatekeeping is the true power of the human potential, and they don't want you to realize your full gifts. They never want you to tap into the four clairs because you would be able to see in the spirit all of the bad things that are going on without ever having to even remote view or see physical proof. You would just know. You could get it from something called the download, where God has told me something and it's been shot down through my crown chakra into my brain, and I've been like, where the hell did that thought come from? It wasn't my own thought. I know my own thoughts. I know the feeling I get when it's my own thoughts. In fact, I'm so used to when I get my own thoughts that that feeling went away. So then when I feel something new, I know that's not from me. It happened during my spiritual awakening. God showed me something, a vision, where He exposed that people are spying on all of us through our front cameras, and our back cameras, if you know what I mean. A lot of people hold the phone like this, right? And they watch something online, something that's free. Nothing's free. So you have to ask why it's free and why they've segued us to watching it on our phone. Not that that's why they made the cell phone, but they're using this as an example or as a reason for it, right? So they're using the front camera to get your facial reactions. They're using the back camera to get you doing the deed, like, you know, the deed. and then they're using a third camera, which they're screen recording what you're watching. They will then compile it into what you're watching being on the main screen, like the video we're reacting to, the front camera being right here, just how I am. Then to the left, like think to the left, if I was to move my thing right there, right? Front camera right there, that camera right there. Then you'd still have room to see the video that the person was watching in the middle. So you get to see that whole experience of them. You think you're doing something in private, you're not. You're not doing it in private. It's being recorded and they're charging people money. Every time somebody wants to see if you have any videos on the dark web, which everybody does if you've ever done the deed, um, this is what was told to me in the spirit. It sounds really schizo, but as you can tell, this was not my own idea because my mind doesn't go to these places. This was in the middle of a spiritual awakening where I felt positivity, love, and light. So why did my brain go to the darkest crevice of the earth? It didn't. It was told to me in my spirit because I had to share. Now I have a responsibility to share this. I've already made videos explaining this. So if you are going to participate in the corn, please, for the love of God, put a little piece of tape over that front and back camera. Do not give them what they want. They're going to financially profit off of your embarrassment. Um, you never signed up to be a corn star. You never signed up to do OF, right? So you shouldn't be on the internet like this. But I'm telling you, this is all the craze in the black market are these Luciferian or satanic evil fallen people, right? They all want this. They're all part of this. This is all the real occult, like the disgusting occult. Not a cult like people who study secret knowledge and Hermeticism and Rosicrucianism. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these evil, the lowest of the low scumbags, where they want to profit off of your embarrassment, your privacy that's not privacy anymore. Okay? So I just had to say that.
Representation of inner experience, and the collapse of the wave function is the representation of the freedom.
This isn't about magical thinking. It's about revisiting the assumptions we've made about how matter and mind interact and realizing that they were never truly separate to begin with. Because if quantum states collapse only when measured, and measurement requires a
Look at this. Before observation, wave, spread out over space and time. At the time of observing, so once you observe this so-called wave, particle localized space-time event. I don't know what that means. So the wave collapses and now it's just a solid object. So I think this little graph right here that we have it paused on is trying to say matter's always in motion, energy, emotion, energy, emotion, but not just our emotions, but this energy in motion, right, is not just reserved to emotion, but energy in motion, something that's absolutely partaking in its own action, right? The second we look at it, it's solid. Now, that's not to say that when I look at this thing, whatever, this thing that holds all my clothes, bureau or whatever, it stays still. But the second nobody's looking at it, it's moving around going, hey, hey, that's not what they mean. They just mean the little bits of particles that make up live energy, like humans, like whatever. These particles that get observed under microscopes. I think that's what they're referring to. Okay?
reference point, then consciousness may be that reference point. Not an observer in the background, but an active agent embedded in the field itself. In fact, every act of awareness could be a moment of creation, where infinite possibilities collapse into a single lived experience, one that's only meaningful because you are the one experiencing it. This may be the clearest explanation yet for something science has danced around for decades, why you can't fully describe reality without including the observer. And if that's true, then your attention, your awareness, isn't just a passive process. It might be the very mechanism that turns potential into reality. When you think about information, what comes to mind? A message? A number? A word on a screen? But that kind of information, what physics calls classical, has no meaning on its own. It can be copied, moved, analyzed, but it doesn't feel like anything. In classical systems, meaning is stripped away. A zero is just a zero. A one is just a one. The system doesn't
Also, zero is just a placeholder.
care what it means. It just runs the program. But consciousness doesn't work like that. There's a kind of information we rarely talk about. You don't just know it. You feel it. The warmth of sunlight. The sound of your name. The sense that
Yeah, it's so much deeper than just being cognizant or like being aware of what somebody's saying or what you're saying. It's more than the five senses, if you get what I'm saying. There is a divine connection between how the brain deciphers information, but also how the heart and our electromagnetic field picks up feelings. No, it's more than feelings. So it's a, I don't know. I'm running out of words here.
something is beautiful or true. These are not just inputs, they are experiences, and experiences cannot be reduced to numbers.
What we feel is only within the field. That's how we know. The meaning is within us, is within the field, is not in the information.
This is where the idea of quantum information becomes essential, because quantum information, unlike classical bits, cannot be copied or
Here it is. Bit heads 0 or tails 1. Information is physical, nature, quantum equals quantum information. Okay, not understanding it.
cloned. It exists as a unique, invisible state, one that collapses the moment it's observed. It's measured. Just like a personal experience, it can be represented but never reproduced. And this leads to a startling realization. Maybe feelings, conscious experiences are themselves quantum phenomena. Maybe your inner world is not something generated by the brain, but something expressed through it. We've built entire civilizations around the idea that meaning comes from the outside world, but what if it's the opposite? What if meaning is generated from the inside and everything else is just the map, not the territory?
Holy
The
shit.
theory of reality is not reality. Okay? So what you feel, only you feel, not body. You feel can actually know. And you know inside. And what you can say about what you feel is a small part of what you feel.
Yeah, you ever feel like words are mere descriptors, or even worse, the words can't describe a certain thing? Like, I've had that happen to me. Probably 20% of all lived experiences, for me at least, cannot be expressed, not even to partially cover it. You know what I'm saying? It's higher than 20% if you want to consider a partial. I'm saying full on, like there's nothing I can do to make to get this across to you. Like the sacred secretion, how do you feel when that oil returns to your brain? The super consciousness that is induced. I can only temporarily explain, only partially get across to you what happens. And I've studied lots of various videos on the sacred secretion, so I know the information. It's still hard to convey the actual experience of it. It's so amazing and transformative.
Olivo's theorem, 1 bit per quantum bit.
You can now learn chess on Duolingo. Yes, that chess. The one with the pawn and pony. Want to train your brain for speed and strategy? Or crush your friends with a devastating checkmate? Well, giddy up.
Oh,
Come
come
learn
on.
chess today. It's your move.
All part of what you feel. Olivo's theorem, 1 bit per quantum bit.
This flips the script on neuroscience, philosophy, even technology. Because if meaning can't be measured or shared in the traditional sense, then no machine, no matter how powerful, can replicate what it's like to be you. This isn't just about consciousness, it's about reality itself. Because when you realize that the universe doesn't contain meaning, but that you're the source of it, then suddenly you're not a passenger in this world. You're a creator.
They put it in our face from the beginning. The universe. You. It's you. It's always been you.
We like to think of the world as something out there, separate from us, something we
As above, so below. As within, so without.
can study, manipulate, even control. But this idea rests on a deep assumption that the observer and the observed are two different things. Quantum physics says otherwise. At its deepest level, reality is holistic. It's not built from separate parts. It's made of relationships, fields, and interactions. You can't
Going down the depths of this particular rabbit hole, it's actually fairly difficult for me sometimes because I see myself as also a physical vessel. Not, I know I'm more than that. I know that I am the soul, the real Josh. It's the soul, but I can't help but notice that this is very real and physical. And when they get so deep down these explanations, they start to suggest things that like the physical part isn't real or whatever, or everything's just an illusion from the mind. But is it? Like, this is a sheet, right? It's really here. Somebody made the sheet and designed it and whatever. And now I'm putting it over my body. Like, that's a real thing. I can't just be like, oh, yeah, we're going to get so deep down the rabbit hole that we start denying basic things that exist. Like, I just can't. So that's what's hard is they need to choose that language a little better, maybe, because that's what they're trying to suggest in some circles, and I don't like that. My brain can't get over that hurdle. So maybe taking me down a different path around the big rock that's in the way would be beneficial, not just for me. Many, if it's happening to me, best believe many others, or at least a certain percentage, which out of 9 billion people, even a low percentage is a huge number of people. You see what I'm trying to get at?
Pull something out of context and still understand what it is, because the moment you isolate it, you destroy what made it meaningful in the first place.
There is no clear boundary between classical and quantum. In other words, we again want to put things into boxes. That's the first mistake. There are no separate boxes. One is holistic. The reality, deeper reality, is holistic, means it's not made of separable parts.
This isn't just
So, can you prove that reality is not made of separate parts? Because, like, headphones, hat, my face, my four fingers, my tattoo, like everything. What do you mean? But it's all one? I mean, I guess a lot of what I just named is part of me, which is one. But they're saying that I see what he's saying now, that it's all one big picture. Like, because everything's on this earth. Wait, then we extrapolate even further. Everything is in the solar system. Wait, then everything's in the whole universe and galaxies all throughout. Wait, and then you can keep bringing it out. We're just focusing on subcategories. Everything is a subcategory because you start with existence, just the word existence, which is all of everything. Then you get down further and further, universe, galaxy, whatever. Then you get to Earth, planet Earth. Then you get to the land, and then you get to human beings. Then you get to the nose. Then you get to the hairs inside the nose. Then the cells that make up the nose. You can keep going, subcategory of a subcategory of a subcategory. But he's saying extrapolated fully, it's all pointing to the same thing, much like our genealogy or like where we're from. You know what I mean? Or our makeup. What am I trying to get at here? That I'm Polish, German, Irish, Italian. But if you go back enough times, we all have the same ancestor. So, like what? You
theory.
know?
It shows up everywhere. In a quantum system, you can't fully describe a particle without including the system that observes it. You can't separate the dancer from the dance. The act of
Oh,
observation is part of the process. But in classical science, we've spent centuries trying to reduce everything to pieces, to break nature down into smaller and smaller parts. Why? Because parts can be measured, parts can be controlled. But fields, relationships, those don't fit neatly into equations. So we started simplifying. We took the infinite and made it binary. True or false, right or wrong, 0 or 1. It made things easier to work with, but in doing so, we began mistaking the map for the territory.
Even true or false is a approximation of reality, valid under certain conditions.
And that's a problem. The world we've built, the science, the logic, the technology, is based on simplifications that break down the moment we go deep enough. It's like trying to describe a symphony using only 2 notes. At some point, the system becomes incoherent. Not because it's wrong, but because reality is more than logic. It's dynamic, it's alive, and it includes you. The paradox? We've built machines that simulate intelligence, but we still don't understand the very intelligence that
and like I said earlier, we've even played like we've played upon the creation of like the internet, the everything that you see on the screen, zeros and ones, and that's a play on masculine and feminine, the two parts that make life. If the ones and zeros meet, I'm not going to do the inappropriate thing where they meet, but That's what happens is life is created. So they are using codes, the two main codes for life, to make their own fake life, which is this, not matrix, because the matrix is, all right, look, another thing, side note, right? The world, here's the world. It exists. It was made beautifully by God, right? In my opinion. And then also on top of this whole world, anywhere you look now, unfortunately, for the most part, you'll see the matrix, which is the man-made world that they put over the world. These buildings, these jobs, corporate things, people walking in with ties. I make six figures plus. I have no soul. I'm living in the carnal mind 24/7. I enjoy the lower chakras. I never tap into my heart center. I never speak from the throat. I never tap into my intuition and discernment, and I never get downloads from the Most High because I prefer to live in the lower chakras. Food, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Ring a bell. You got to break free. You got to rise above, literally. Okay.
Them because we've been asking the wrong question. Not how does it work, but what is it that knows? And the deeper you go into that question, the more the answers start pointing inward.
When you hear that,
Python.
More the answers start pointing.
We don't even have Python. That was Conor McGregor and Uriah Hall. And then he made fun of his butt chin, which I have a little bit of one too. But whatever. But he was making fun of that, and then he said, "Well, what about you? You got." He said something about Conor McGregor was like, "What's that python?" And he was trying to say python like a snake. And then Uriah Faber went, "Oh, python. We don't even have python in America," and made fun of his like Irish accent. Bro, that was hilarious.
Inward. We've all wondered at some point what happens after death. Let's hear what
Python.
Federico has to say about it.
Imagine that you
Python.
control a drone. We are a body controls a drone that is in Afghanistan, watching around and semi-autonomous, so I don't have to worry about, I only have to express where I want it to go. So now the drone looks at that reality where it is, sends me information, and I get the conscious experience of what the drone is seeing. That conscious experience is not in my body, is in my consciousness. And based on that, and based on my free will, I'll tell the drone what to do. The drone doesn't know anything.
He's going to draw a direct parallel between us and that drone, and then our body and what the drone would actually be, which it actually, rather, the drone would be a representation of our body, but the real us is something deeper, like me, like the soul. And then the body is what is the mechanics through which I'm able to see. But then what this body sees is telling the real me what it sees, but it all happens that quick, infinitely quicker than what you could even imagine, in a split hair of a second.
You were so focused on that drone that you only saw what the drone was seeing because you were piloting it and you were concentrated. Then when the drone doesn't send you on its own, you look around and you say, oh my God, there is another world here. You see?
Yeah.
That's the same thing. The ego, when the body dies, it doesn't look at the signals of the body anymore.
He just said the ego, when the ego dies, the dark night of the
And he looks
soul.
around and says, oh shit,
Yeah.
wow, look at this.
If consciousness doesn't come from the body but only uses the body, then death isn't the end, it's just a disconnection, like a drone going dark.
Yeah, where we separate and we say, okay, my lifelong, or at least in this life, my lifelong connection to this physical vessel, it's over now. Now I must go elsewhere.
While the operator remains intact, simply shifting awareness back to its original source. And when that drone goes offline, when the body dies, consciousness doesn't disappear, it simply loses its local connection. This isn't just speculation. Thousands of near-death experiences around the world describe the same thing: separation from the body, awareness of surroundings, and a shift into something vaster, more peaceful, more real than anything physical. People report seeing their own surgery from above. They recount conversations that occurred while their brain showed no measurable activity, and in some cases they meet people, relatives, friends they didn't even know had passed until they returned. and learn the truth.
They are clinically dead. They're not dead clearly if they are resuscitated, but they are, for all practical purposes, dead. Okay, and they have an experience in the hospital. They see themselves in the operating table. They later tell what's going on. While the brain has no electrical signal, the brain is not functioning. So how can you be outside?
And that's true. That proves that our thoughts don't come from our mind. Holy, that would be the biggest psyop, the biggest trick that they've ever done is led us to believe through these textbooks that were written by certain people, right? That our brain's the ones, the part of our whole makeup that is dissecting information. Like when I'm talking, when I'm pausing this video and then I just keep talking and everything, whatever's going on right now, there's something letting me and telling me this is how it's supposed to go. Literally every single word. I'm not thinking about it. It's just happening.
The body, looking down at your body in the operating table.
They're suggesting that our consciousness is something abstract from any part of our body, not the brain, not the heart, not the liver, something different. Okay, like like they said, they mentioned the quantum field.
Cannot be explained, right?
This challenges everything we thought we knew. If the brain stops functioning and yet awareness persists, then consciousness cannot be a product of the brain. It must be something deeper, something already existing before the brain and continuing after it. Even more fascinating is the idea that the physical world we experience is filtered, limited, like a narrow frequency band tuned by the senses. But outside that,
That could be true. I've always thought that all this invisible space that we call oxygen, I always believe that it has much more than just oxygen in it. I think it carries energetic properties. I just saw something a couple weeks ago where they mentioned that it's like DC power, like when you plug in a DC volt charger or like a power outlet bank. Whatever I'm trying to say. Like the things that 9 volt, whatever. To think of Sega and Super Nintendo when you had to plug that big thing into the wall, that. So that is what carries the electrical current through it and gives it power from the wall, right? Now, they said there's energy similar to just like all those things that we use, the systems. That energy is actually permeating our atmosphere at all times. I just saw something about that like 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever. Amazing if it's truthful at all. Because that means that, yeah, that leads me to believe that the energetic grids in the past from ancient times that they used to use were definitely accurate and true. They used free energy that came from Earth, from Mother Earth. Crazy. And now we took a different approach.
and a broader, richer spectrum of reality may be constantly unfolding, one we simply don't perceive through biological eyes. Bachin compares it to vision. You see a tiny slice of light that the
That's it.
electromagnetic field holds.
Yes, I paused it. Okay. So literally that little bit around the middle, that's what we can see. That everything, my body, the color of this shirt, it's all measured and it can be found within that little thing down there in the bottom middle, right? But then there's this whole other aspect to it. Watch
Infinitely
this.
more. Swap your eyes for a cell phone antenna and suddenly you'd see thousands of conversations happening all around you. So what happens when the filter drops away? When the body is gone and consciousness is no longer tethered to a narrow stream of data? Maybe you don't go anywhere. Because maybe you were never really in the body to begin with. There's a moment, instant, silent,
Whoa.
and complete, when consciousness becomes aware of itself, not just aware of the world around it or of a body moving through space, but of its
Yeah, it's the moment where you're like, oh, hey, that's who I really am. This is really
own
me.
existence. That moment isn't gradual, it doesn't build, it flashes. And in that flash, something extraordinary happens, the creation of a self.
The moment that one knows itself, he has to know completely itself because it's not made of parts. He cannot know a part of itself. He has to know the
3
totality of
hits in
itself.
total.
This is how individuality begins, not as a separation, as a reflection. Consciousness looking at itself from one unique angle among infinite possible directions. Each angle creates a new whole, a new expression of the same unified feel. Not a copy, not a fragment, but a whole, seen from a different perspective. It's like shining light through a crystal. Every beam is unique, but the source is the same. In this model, life isn't random. It's not a side effect of chemistry, it's the result of awareness folding in on itself, generating complexity through recognition. That's why each conscious being feels like an I, because each one is a distinct viewpoint within the great whole. And here's where it goes even deeper. According to this view, everything that exists comes from this process. The universe doesn't just exist, it knows it exists. And because of that, it creates new layers of experience, new dimensions of expression, not through programming, not through design, but through the sheer act of self-awareness. This isn't metaphor, it's a model that explains why life can't be copied, why consciousness can't be simulated, and why true intelligence is always rooted in experience, not in data. So when we talk about identity, we're not talking about a label or a role or a body, we're talking about the field's way of knowing itself, through you. Once you understand that awareness is not a byproduct of the brain, but the source of everything, those beliefs fall apart.
Consciousness is beyond matter, beyond this space and time. It is the tool for
Yeah.
knowing infinitely more powerful than any instrument that we have ever built.
In this view, intelligence isn't about calculating faster, it's about knowing meaning, feeling truth, recognizing beauty. Things no algorithm can replicate, no matter how advanced. Even if artificial intelligence generates a brilliant idea, it doesn't know that it's brilliant. It doesn't feel it. It can't understand what it means. Only you can do that. This is the line no machine will ever cross.
That's true. We are very blessed and unique. I hate when people put humans down or say, "Oh, we're not really that big of a deal. We're just specks of dust." Really, are we? Because if you compare how we are able to think, process, talk, feel, live, get certain things done, you compare that to other like animals or other. What I meant to say was other living things are in this earth on this earth, you're going to notice that we were made a cut above them all, not to be like arrogant or cocky or anything, but to be honest. Sure, we don't know. They might be talking telepathically and they might have their own language and be like, "Ha, dumb humans think they're smarter than us." But then again, maybe not, bro, because we're building things, we're creating systems within systems. I don't see them doing that. They do a couple things, like some of them will burrow underground or whatever, or find ways to stay warm in the winter or save up food to survive. They're very smart. Okay, survival is the name of their game. But we human beings, as complex creatures, we're able to go far beyond just mere survival strategy and learn how to. We've already conquered that probably millennia ago, and now we're just at a point where we're working on other things. Very impressive.
Ability to know what it is like to be. That's why self-awareness matters. It's not just a spiritual luxury, it's a survival mechanism, because when you truly understand who you are, when you experience yourself as part of a larger whole, you stop competing, you start cooperating, not because someone told you to, but because it's the only thing that makes sense. And that might be the most important shift of all, because we live in a world driven by fragmentation, divided by belief, identity, and fear. But those divisions
Wow. Yeah, the people at the top love doing it to us. And when people like us, every now and then, we arise and we try to speak things into existence and bring everybody back together, they're not going to like that. But hey, we didn't like what they did through the chaos and division and hatred and death. So that's why we're now speaking our truth and trying to bring the truth back into the light, which is that we are all one divine unity consciousness. We are great people. We just get pulled into bad situations, but I don't believe anybody's born bad. I believe bad is a condition that's always existed on this fallen realm known as planet Earth, and people get pulled into it by those who've come before them. But there has to be the first sin or the first mistake that led to all to this cycle. So that's where the Bible comes into play, in my humble opinion.
aren't real. They're the result of forgetting what we are. We're not machines. We're not separate.
I mean, you think of Satan, like Lucifer fallen to become Satan, pride and rebellion were the first two sins. Then Adam and Eve, with the apple and trying to get godlike powers on their own. It's similar to how Satan wanted to be God. So that's three things, two, but three together. We'll just say two different because it's two different scenarios. Then you also read about things like Cain and Abel, somebody killing their own freaking brother. Dude, then you read about the fourth one, Joseph, like they had like one of 12 or one of 10 kids, or 9, 10, 11, or 12 or whatever. He had a bunch of brothers, and he would had a dream that he got elected, and he was no, he was one of the elect. He was a chosen one and very special, and God had a purpose for him. Things like that, and he would reveal that to his own brothers, being excited, wanting to share it with them, and they were like, instead of being like, we're so happy for you, Joseph, we're going to always be there for you, they got jealousy stirred in their hearts, many of them, and they convened and they talked to one another. They wanted their own brother, their own flesh and blood, they wanted him dead, just because the brother Joseph was saying, I think I'm going to be like come up in the world, I think good things are coming. They were like, we don't want that. And now people have that in their hearts today, not necessarily brothers and sisters of people, but people within the churches, people within your friend groups, acquaintances especially. They would want to see you. A lot of them would want to see you do good, just not better than them, because then they have to compare themselves to you at all times. This is bad. That is a fallen nature of man. I'm a little off topic,
We are
sorry.
fields of consciousness, each one a unique way the universe sees itself. And if enough of us remember that, something changes, not just in theory, but in how we treat each other, in how we build, in how we live. Because the future doesn't belong to the fastest system, it belongs to the deepest awareness. This is for today's video. If you made it this far, thank you. I hope this left you with new questions, new perspectives, and maybe even a deeper sense of yourself. Share this video with someone who's ready to hear it, someone who's been asking the same questions we all have, but never quite found the language for them. If you don't want to miss what's coming next, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, because the next video might just go even deeper.
Thank you.
Have you
Great
seen a
channel,
Dragon
by
Ball
the way.
game this realistic?
Great channel, by the way. One second. Okay, so it goes vertical only. Anyway, screw that. Whoa, that looks demonic. I just don't want that on my screen at all. X that out. Just leave it like that for now. All right, that's all I got in this one. Thanks so much for stopping by. It's been your boy Sigma the Stigma, and thank you for stopping by and watching an episode of Sigma React. Eventually, I want to, on my other channel, since I have more subscribers on the other one, I want to go live, and that would be a good thing to do, go live, and then at the end of each live stream, I could then upload it, or it might even automatically upload. I don't know how it works, because I've never gone live yet, but I would love to do that. That's a good way to start getting new subscribers, too. But until next time, stay safe, be blessed, and live lavishly. I'm going to see all of you in the next reaction video, and until then, just know that I love you all. Peace, and God bless. Any second now. We're going to see such things as this.
Quasi here. 3,500 years ago, somewhere in the ancient Persian desert, a man climbed a mountain and came back down.
All right. Like I said, that's all. Until next time, stay safe, be blessed, and live lavishly. I'm going to see all y'all in the next one. Peace, and God bless.